Welcome to Wide Awake Stories from Insomniac.
Now, here's a little story I got to tell about three you know so well.
Welcome to the Church of What's Happening Now. Wide Awake Stories
from Insomniac.
This is a journey, a journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new value, and a new experience.
Broadcasting from the Insomniac HQ. This is Wide Awake Stories.
Welcome to Wide Awake Stories, episode 20.
Yes, I was so close to the legal age of 21, but we'll get there soon.
Shy, you're 20, right?
I'm turning 22, guys.
Oh.
Big girl over here.
Soon the show will be older than you.
Insomniac's older than me. Daniel, Rich, and Shy have returned, and we have a special guest from the Insomniac crew. Introduce yourself, baby.
What's up? My name is Caroline, and I also go by Soothslayer when I play the drum and basses. Thanks for having me.
Woo!
Thank you for being here. We love when you play the drum and basses.
Caroline also works in Insomniac in the video department.
This is true. I edit videos and cut some of the trailers for the shows that we do, and just try to have a nice creative balance all around of aesthetic and sonics all together.
So Caroline's here today because we have a bit of a theme running on today's show, don't we, Rich?
We do. We are talking about the drum and the bass.
I love drums and basses.
I love drums and bass. Drum and bass is very close to my heart. Back in the days when I actually used
he started
to DJ.
already. Back in the day.
Oh, he said, he was like,
okay, everyone drink when I say back in the day.
Sorry, right before we started recording, Rich goes, I need to bring like young and hip into this because I don't want to talk about, like back in the day drum and bass.
So who had the over-under on 2 minutes? I meant when I used to DJ, which happened to be BITD, I spun funky breaks and I spun drum and bass. In fact, me and Chris Muniz, aka DJ Nightstalker, did an all-vinyl drum and bass set at the EDC 20 in 2016 in a little back room at the VIP area at Kinetic Field, which was a whole lot of fun.
Hard eyes.
So I do love the drum and the bass.
I used to love drum and bass. My bag was liquid funk, Fabio Groove Rider style, Creative Source, Creative Wax, 97 kind of vibe. That was me. And then I have to say that nowadays I don't follow the scene so much. I like it sonically. There's some really nice noises going on, but it's not something that I would know too much about these days. But ask me a question from 1998 and I will tell you, I will be full of passion.
What was Joker Records release number 112? No. But Caroline, I think you can speak to what's happening currently in drum and bass and what excites you, because when you play out, you play a mix of different things. I mean, I've heard you play hard stuff. I've heard you play liquid stuff. Like it's kind of...
Right. I would say I relate mostly to the rollers and a lot of neuro drum and bass, which is all the darker sounding things. I really like dark drum and bass. That's my favorite kind. I don't relate as much to the liquid as Daniel does.
Does
I'm
liquid
the opposite
still exist?
spectrum. It sure does. It's beautiful. Hospital Records is still keeping it alive for sure.
Right.
Lots of people are still making beautiful liquid music. I think it's
like
beautiful
Bookham
music.
style liquid, or like the really jazzy kind. I was really into the sort of super two-step like jazzy kind of stuff.
I feel like now it's more dance floor liquid, where it's just kind of like really epic and cinematic and lots of pads and synths and all these like beautiful sounds that take time to develop.
Do you remember when it was called intelligent drum and bass?
Oh,
I don't,
yes.
but I remember intelligent dance music, IDM, which was like Aphex Twin style.
Calling something intelligent drum and bass assumes that the rest of it's not so intelligent, but it was called intelligent. Fabio used to say that. I used to produce Fabio's radio show.
See, so back in the day,
back in the day. Back in the day.
Guilty as charged. Do you think that the scene right now is super healthy? Do you think it's kind of peaking? And in terms of mainstream appreciation of drum and bass, it only pokes its head into the mainstream like every once in a while, because someone will have a tune that's got a drum and bass tempo, or someone will just release something that just completely smashes. Like, where do you think the genre is right now in terms of its mainstream appeal?
In the United States, it's definitely not very popular, which I think is very unfortunate, because it's one of the most amazing technical genres of music I think ever created. I think for a lot of people, they don't understand a lot of the sounds. They don't understand the pace of it. It's a lot faster.
If you can cope with the sounds of trap and dubstep, then why would drum and bass scare you?
It's the ear. When I used to listen to dubstep, like when I first got into dance music, I used to say I hate drum and bass because I couldn't digest it. I thought it was like it was too fast for me. I'm like, oh, I feel like it's giving me anxiety. It's stressing me out. And a lot of people say the same. But if you ease into it, like I eased into it with liquid drum and bass and then got into, like jungle drum and bass, I was like, oh, fuck, I love this. Like it makes you once you like ease into it and like get yourself familiar with, the softer versions of it, I think you can get really into it.
Drum and bass is a consistent ride for me. It's always going to take you on this flow, whereas I feel like trap and dubstep, there's like this kind of pause, and then it runs forward, and then it stops, and then the drop is insane. Like drum and bass to me is like a heartbeat. It's like a consistent heartbeat. It's got some energy in some places, but it's not dependent on that huge drop.
There's more of a flow. Yeah. And a journey to each record.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Set.
And you can also do the faster style of the way I feel like some of the like dubstep and trap is mixed together. A lot of people aren't always mixing, but kind of like just slamming into the next moment, the next drop. With drum and bass, I feel like you have that moment to mix them together, and you can still keep them all going and have 3 records at one time.
What attracted me to drum and bass initially was I was a hip hop head, like an old school hip hop head, and you could
back in the day.
Back in the day.
I didn't say back in the day. Well, I will say the glory days, the golden years of hip hop. And hip hop tempos were essentially halftime of what drum and bass tempos were. I think Aphrodite was the one who did it the most with like Jungle Brothers remixes and the Loonies remix of I've Got 5 on it. It was a mix of hip hop and drum and bass. And so when I started DJing drum and bass, I would always bring a bunch of old school hip hop records and throw verses during the breakdowns and like in the drops too. And it was exciting to me because it was this kind of things that people had been used to hearing with all these old school hip hop tracks, but in a way that it's almost like cheating, right? I mean, you're kind of hooking them with.
That's not cheating. It's live mashups. No one's doing that nowadays.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is that still a thing at all, or is trap kind of now taking hold of the sort of?
No, there are still people that are making that when mixing live that will have the a cappella style, or they'll do their own remix of a hip hop song. And then there's even the new modern hip hop songs that they're doing that with. I've heard a bunch of Post Malone remixes that are made into drum and bass songs. I've heard Migos song that was made into a drum and bass song. So it's like people are still doing that concept. I just think back in the day you would have back in the day
Shy is the only one that would complete the Connect 4 back in the day.
Real. You had Craze that would do a lot of the mashup style.
I love Craze.
And he's still doing
it.
Sure, he's keeping that vibe alive. I feel like Hype still does that every once in a while too.
Well, he's a back in the day DJ though, isn't he? So he's an original gangster.
Craze also killing it on Instagram, by the way.
Okay, I don't follow him, but
follow him.
But Hype is Hype is the guy that I learned to DJ from imitating. And the scratch styles was of him. So I just used to listen to tapes of him at raves. Yeah. Just rewind it and just keep going over his scratches and slowing them down and working out what he was doing.
Right.
And that's how I learned how to DJ, him and Slipmat.
Yeah.
Were the 2 guys. I never met them. I do have now, but back then I hadn't. I was just learning their DJ style from listening to tapes of Dreamscape and World Dance and Mind Warp.
For sure.
Those sound like back in the day parties.
Back in the day.
Well, so speaking of back in the day, our first guest on the show, who you mentioned, Andy C, is someone who has been playing for a long time and essentially been a part of the Bass Rush family for forever. I mean, he's been so tight with the community. Always looks forward to coming out. We just had him at Escape.
Always playing.
Yeah,
they love him.
Super gentleman.
He's the nicest guy in the world.
He seems like such a nice guy.
He's very, very kind, and he's very humble for, winning the Best DJ award for forever, it seems like, because he is probably the best DJ in the world. So true to who he is and the music that he loves.
We had our own DJ Night Stalker, Chris Muniz, sit down with Andy, who I think may have done a shot every time someone said back in the day at Escape. And here's their conversation.
Wide Awake Stories from Insomniac.
Welcome to Wide Awake Stories. This is Chris Muniz, aka DJ Night Stalker. I'm here with Andy C. here in Los Angeles at Escape Psycho Circus. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Good to see you, Chris, man. It's been a long journey.
Oh, where are you coming from?
Well, we're coming from London, straight from the UK, and early start, 6 a.m. this morning, which was, I guess 10 p.m. last night for you.
Yeah.
3-hour car journey, but we're here now.
But you're here now. You're here now.
Drinks are flowing. I'm sure the vibes are raging.
The vibes are raging.
So we're good to go.
So we're here in, you're home away from home, really. Bass Rush is basically your second family at this point. Mm-hmm. We consider you family as well. What do you think about Los Angeles, Southern California, the United States in general?
Yeah. Well, I was just saying earlier on, I don't know how many times I've been coming to this particular venue. But I got some fantastic memories, and it is like family coming back. And it's always great to bump into everybody. But the vibe in LA, California has always been really special for drum and bass. I know that people like yourself and people who I've been seeing for so many years have been flying the flag, and keeping the flame burning for D&B. And we go through peaks and we go through troughs. But the family is a consistent thing, the drum and bass family in California, and it's just a great thing to come out here. I mean, I think we was here back in June, just back in June. It was so. That's right, exactly. So. As long as you guys are around, man, we'll keep coming back. So I think that's going to carry on for quite a few years yet.
Yeah. Well, how many years is this now? If you count back to the early days of drum and bass for you, when you think back of your legacy, just in terms of when I was a kid, I had no idea where I would be this far along.
Yeah, well, you could say that because first rave I ever done, I was playing to about 5 people in a shed in a garden. But no, I've been coming here for so long, and everybody's been hooking up in different parts of the States, and we always used to hook up at a conference in Miami as well, right? Yeah. Exactly. Put on the parties in conference. And the years fly by at such a fast rate these days, don't they? Because everyone's so busy and there's so much going on. And like you said, we was just here in June for Bass Rush Matthews, which was a great party, by the way. And then obviously was here Beyond as well. And then the great parties at Exchange with a longer set. So yeah, man, the years roll by, but for me the vibe grows stronger, and on each new wave of generation of raver that come through, they sort of discover in the States especially. It feels like people discover it like it's something new. Like for us, it's old school, But I get a lot of messages from people every time I come. They're all like, "Wow, I wasn't expecting that," because I'm fortunate. I get thrown into the middle, the pit, so to speak, in between other genres. Maybe not so much tonight, but quite often when I come here, I play in between other genres. So maybe as a result of that, I'm playing to people that might not have heard drum and bass before. And I always get very positive messages after, which is a good thing.
Yeah. So in the UK, is it straight drum and bass all night?
Yeah, it is. I mean, there was a mixed multi-genre vibe going on for a while, and at the bigger festivals, you'll play after different genres. If you're playing on a stage with 20,000-30,000 people, but we're D&B to the core over there, man. So we do very big drum and bass parties over there.
So when you come to the States, do you play a different kind of set? Are you thinking about bridging the old school with the new school?
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was coming here tonight. So I'm in the car and I'm listening to all the new tunes. And tonight, I think I just want to play new, fresh stuff. Nice. That's what I'm feeling tonight. I have tried to bridge that before or thought about it, but tonight's like a 1-hour set. Yeah. So I'm probably just gonna go slamming for an hour of fresh material. But I'll play a few old tunes. But you're conscious as a DJ, especially if you're playing to audiences that aren't necessarily fully into the D&B vibe, that you might, you want to keep people dancing, and also you don't want to alienate them and keep them bubbling along, so that 20-30 minutes in, you're going to play a couple of tunes that's going to capture their imagination, which is going to get them hooked. And that's the sort of the trick, as it were. When
you think about your own sort of, I guess, journey and sort of what you represent in terms of drum and bass as the ambassador, as the executioner. I mean, that's a lot of that's a lot of pressure, right? That's a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah, well, you could say that. You've built it up now, haven't you? I haven't played yet.
Yeah, like so does that also come into sort of like when you're thinking about it and you're like driving here and you're like, okay, I gotta like, I am Andy C. Like there's a part of you that's like not Andy C. You know, I'm like Andrew. I don't know what, you know.
No, yeah, exactly. No, I don't think about it like that. I think about, honestly, there's like a great, like I was saying earlier, a great hardcore of people, and like I think as long as you're mindful of the new audience, like I've just mentioned, but also, you know, there are a lot of die-hard drum and bass fans in California that come to these parties. So it's my job, you know, they might be coming tonight. I know Noisia are on as well, so I know they're going to be absolutely smashing it tonight. You know, sometimes there's only one of us. There's only one drum and bass act. So, you know, it's my job to sort of like give them a power hour. You know what I mean, of drum and bass, so that if you've paid your money, you know, if they paid the money to come in, they're going to get a full-on, you know, power hour of D&B to satisfy the vibe.
That's right.
You know, and then, like I say, hopefully you can bring in some more people and that. But, you know, hopefully you'll be up there having a little boogie as well, you know, and that's the vibe. I mean, because I always really vibe off the crowd on the stage. You know, a lot of DJs, or a lot of people are like, oh, I like a closed stage, you know, I don't want anyone on stage. I mean, I need people around me on stage to vibe. And sometimes that brings out the best in you. You know, when you're getting the hardcore on the stage going, you know, at the back of the stage going, and that transmits to the front, and everybody gets on a vibe.
It reminds me of like the old warehouse days when you were right there in the mix, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, we played a gig in Manchester the other week in the Warehouse Project, and me and Tom were up on stage, his hometown, and he had all his crew in there, and then Goldie rocks up with his crew, and then Noisia, Tyres from Noisia rocked up, and we just suddenly started having this party on stage, like a full-on party on stage. It was going insane, and as a DJ, that was so inspiring, because suddenly there's like a sort of little party going on stage, and obviously there's a big party going on out in the audience, but somehow they, in the middle of it all, they connect. You know, and there's a real energy throughout the whole place. Instead of everyone standing on stage just gazing out and trying to be cool, we're having our own rave on stage. Yeah, exactly. Losing it. And that's what you vibe off as a DJ. You just want everybody to have a party and have a good time.
Let's switch gears, because I know people often think of you traveling, flying, coming here, DJing. But what about the days that you don't travel? What does the day look like? What is your morning routine? How do you spend your day?
Well, it's got to start with a cup of tea in the morning.
What time do you wake up?
What time do I wake up? I'm an early bird, man. I'm an early bird, 8, something like that, 8:30. Yeah, surprisingly. But kick back, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to take care of. You know, try and spend some time with the family, as much time as possible, obviously. And that involves us all going football as well, and kicking back and doing stuff like that. I mean, you got to rest when you can. These weekends absolutely take, like I told you, we've flown for 12 hours, we've driven for 3 hours, we're going to do this, we're flying to Toronto tomorrow, which is 5 hours. Home on Sunday, it takes it out of you. So the weeks are like recovery mode. Plus there's a lot going on. I mean, you know, for example, this week, there's a whole nother project coming next year that's exciting. I've been working on that this week. We had meetings about Wembley to do with the stage setup for that this week. I've also had 2 days in the studio this week. So it's like, downtime is very precious, and you have to make the most of it.
And then how much is that like just thinking about tunes? When you're thinking about your sets coming up, how much of that is just natural at this point, where you're just listening to music and being like, okay, I already kind of know where this is going to fit in?
I think that in the car on the way here, I listen to music non-stop while these two were asleep. No, I was listening to, and I was thinking, I kind of know where that's gonna, you know, the style of tune's gonna slot in, and then you make up, you know, like a folder of tunes, you know, and Yeah, as I said, like I say, sometimes you can go in, like I was saying in Manchester the other week, or like I've just said, I'm going to play fresh tunes tonight. I may not. You never know. 5 or 10 minutes into the set, you might get a different vibe and it goes a different way. So, you know, the job as a DJ is to go wherever the vibe takes you. Sometimes you have preconceived ideas of like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to play this tune, I'm going to play that tune. After 5-10 minutes, that could be out the window. But there is so much new music and very, very like, you know, sick new music, like exciting new music. So I want to try and express some of that tonight.
Any chance you can sort of fill us in on who Razor is?
Well, when Razor lets me know that I can fill people in on who it is. Yeah. No, but there's some hot there's some hot tunes. There's actually, I've got 2 fresh ones in the bag tonight from said Razor. So I'll leave it up to them when they expose exactly. And
their program's been like such an amazing sort of label for me to sort of discover new artists and sort of just catch a vibe sometimes. How much does program, I guess, fit into sort of your overall vision of where drum and bass is headed and sort of your overall vision of the scene?
Well, Program is a test bed. We've had some great artists come through Program and then onto RAM, and also it's not considered, oh, you go on Program and then you move up to RAM anymore. I think Program is just like, we release some pretty left field stuff on there and show the sort of the breadth of it. Exactly, the depth and breadth of D&B, and so Program's got its own place, and I'm really happy that it's got its niche in the weird and wonderful world of D&B, depending on what vibe it is. And then it's just a case of choosing what does come on Program, because there always has been a lot of music around, but these days I don't know what there is, like insane. Like literally in the car on the way here tonight,
I'm just on the promo.
There's like 30 hot like tunes that I'm like, I want to play that. I can't play 30 tunes. That's a set. What am I going to do to last week's tunes? You know, like, it's ridiculous. Good on one hand, bad if you've only got an hour set. You know, so you know, when I can get greedy and do 5 or 6 hours. That makes it all the better.
It speaks to the strength of the scene. You know, as things come and go, obviously drum and bass heads feel like, you know, we've been here through it all, ups and downs, and we're going to be here. House and techno seems to be sort of having a resurgence, but do you pay attention to those kind of sort of ups and downs, or do you just kind of do your thing, or what's your sort of take on the scene in general?
It's funny when I get in. I was in Ibiza at the DJ Awards, and I was getting interviewed, and they were going, "Oh, you know, how does it feel when drum and bass has been on the back burner?" And it's been, and I don't. And you're like, yeah, hold on, you know, like, I'm not really seeing that, you know. And I think, exactly. It's like if you ask that. Obviously, in the commercial world, drum and bass only pokes its head above the water every now and again. But everyone in drum and bass will testify that it is a very, very healthy scene. Always has been. You know, and there are peaks and troughs. When I say troughs, it's like you might go through a few years of somebody's not made a big, you know, like we need big, you know, like, you know, them big exciting tunes that come along, and everyone's like, have you heard that tune? That's it. Oh my God. And it can send the scene in a whole nother direction, and then it can take it somewhere. And that's what I mean about peaks and, you know, like some years you spend a year treading water of, like, in the sense of the same tunes. But yeah, we the scene is incredibly healthy. I think it's led to the longevity of it. I know in my career, on a personal level, that has been the foundation of the longevity of it. You know, my agent, everyone would always say, you know, instead of like just suddenly coming out of nowhere and going, boom, you know, the new big thing, and then next year, oh, that was last year's thing. Drum and bass has always been just adding to the foundations, adding to the core, you know, picking people up along the way. And you get to a certain period after, you know, however many moons we've been doing it. And the foundations are so, the scene is so entrenched and has got such depth in its foundations across the whole scene, across every genre of the scene, that it ain't going nowhere. It's like a staple now, isn't it? It's like, you know, you got R&B, you got blues, you got rock. You know, it's like I think it can be paralleled with that in a scene that it doesn't, like other scenes have come and gone, but obviously house and techno as well, same thing. But drum and bass is unique, and it's one unto itself, and there'll never be another like it, and it's never going to go anywhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, we are totally unique in that, so I take comfort in that, and that's why the raves are always jamming and always busy. You know what I mean? We don't need them commercial success. We don't need people to say like, oh, you're on the front cover, there's an A-list record, or there's you know, this going on, because we know how strong the scene is.
This is Wide Awake Stories.
What I love about Andy so much is he's so polite that you forget that his whole take on drum and bass is, I don't give a fuck how popular it is in the mainstream. The genre is smashing it all the time. It's going to be here forever. And we don't need that sort of big hit to really power the community and push this genre of music along, because it will stand on its own 2 feet forever.
He's right. Drum and bass, I mean, it really has stood the test of time. There isn't another genre of dance music that has maintained itself that long. I mean, in its same form, because if you look at, say, trance, it's completely different back then as to what it is now. Drum and bass it's stayed true to its roots.
Drum and bass doesn't have an expiration date.
Well, I would challenge someone to put on like Dillinger's Hard Noise, like now at a show, and it'll still crush. Absolutely. No matter what.
I still play lots of Dillinger Capone songs. That song Friday still goes all the way off every time. But then there's also a lot of, you know, people from back in the day that know exactly what song that is, so they're just having a good time to it.
One of the criticisms I would have about drum and bass is that it is kind of still the same as it was back then, though. The production techniques and it sonically sounds bigger, but you know, as a genre, it's basically the same as what it is back then. You could play a track from 15, 20 years ago, and if it was remastered to sound like today, you wouldn't know that it wasn't a new track.
I feel like back in the day, it was more about the almond break, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
And I feel like it's not as much about that sample anymore. I feel like now you have really thick, punchy kicks and really hollow snares. Like, you have a whole different sonic sound. It is the same formula. It is the same math. It does go on the same type of flow. But I do feel like the actual overall sound has evolved a lot since the beginning.
I mean, Shy, you're in an interesting place too, because being a member of the Bass Rush team, that's a genre that really started with drum and bass, and now I think some would argue that drum and bass takes a little bit of a backseat to the trap and the dubstep programming.
Yeah, it's really upsetting, especially being the person running our socials and seeing every day there's going to be 1 to 12 kids saying, when is there a drum and bass show, or why isn't there enough drum and bass on this lineup? It's really, it's really hard because it's not that strong right now, and especially with ticket buyers and the position that we're in, like, we do have to sell tickets. We can't book everything we want based on our preference. Like, I mean, listen, I would book certain artists every weekend in LA because I know a lot of people would want to see it, but the show wouldn't succeed right now in this time, and we would have to, take the loss because of that. And sometimes with drum and bass, it's very hard. So we try to scatter it as much as we can, on bigger areas like festivals where we have the ability to, try things out with other artists that we think would do right in that scenario. So it's really tough. We want to do more drum and bass, and I know we're trying to and planning the right way to get it out there. We have Function, which is basically another name for the shows that we do for drum and bass, but it is a priority to get it back out there.
Is it Bass Rush's responsibility to drive it forward or to react to the market? Discuss.
I think it's both. I think we're right now in this position with how strong of a voice we do have to so many people, not just in California. We do have the ability to push certain sounds, especially with, I hate saying experimental bass. There's no really word for, this style right now. But with that sound, because it is more prevalent, we're trying to, push it forward and do more shows with that. And I think that with drum and bass, we have to do the same. Bring it back and try and make it more present.
I have a question for Caroline. With the drum and bass crowd, the ticket buyers that Shai was referring to, do you find it's an older crowd or is it the new kids coming through into that scene?
Honestly, it's probably a lot of an older crowd. I think a lot of the new kids are really intimidated by it, but then you get a handful of the younger kids that are like, I've played some shows where, even in Insomniac shows where I've had probably kids that, 18 to 20 that have never heard of drum and bass before that are like, wow, I just stopped by the stage and I had never heard this music before, but this is amazing. And this has really opened my eyes to a whole different genre.
We need more. One of the label heads at Insomniac, we actually just signed a drum and bass song to Bass Rush, and we had this argument about how it isn't out there enough in the US, and because we now have the platform with a label under Bass Rush, being able to sign more drum and bass songs to 100,000 followers on whatever social media, it's another way to kind of force feed a younger crowd drum and bass, and we really want to do that.
One of the things I love about the current bass music culture is something that I used to see a lot of in the drum and bass culture, which is this whole aspect of the B2B, right? You would have B2Bs in drum and bass all the time where people would go back and forth, really feed off one another energy-wise. And if you're going B2B with someone, you're not pre-programming a set. It's all kind of off the top of your head. Over the last few years, that's really been something that's been adopted by bass music DJs a lot too. And whereas techno and house, sometimes you'll see, I'm not talking about the entourage behind, I'm talking about actual DJs on stage. You would see 5 or 6 drum and bass guys back there, patting each other on the back, and one track going to this track, going to this track. You've seen that a lot in bass, in dubstep too. So that to me is like a tribal cultural thing where there actually is a crossover, where the dubstep guys are engaging in that free-flowing, hey, you put on a track, I'll put on a track, let's big up one another, that I liked so much about drum and bass, that attracted me so much to drum and bass, which kind of dovetails into our next interview with Noisia. So once again, DJ Night Stalker, aka Chris Muniz, aka USC PhD, aka Papi Noche, met up with Noisia as well after his set at Escape, and they had a little chat.
You're tuned in to Wide Awake Stories.
We're here with Noisia once again. He just finished a hot set.
What up, what up?
All right, so on the way over here, we're talking about because we were all up there on stage with you and Andy, and it was like, what is it about drum and bass people that like people on stage with him?
I don't know. It was always like small clubs, and like dark, low ceiling places that where you drop like new tracks that no one expected. And it wasn't about it was about recognition, but also about like unexpected new things that you would play suddenly, and then all the other DJs were there to fucking slap you on the legs, like, dude, what the fuck? Yeah. And that's still a thing. That's still something that I love when it doesn't happen as much anymore, because even while drum and bass isn't really hasn't really blown up anywhere like some other genres, it's become a lot bigger than it used to be. And so the parties are bigger, more professional and everything, and people clear the stage and all that. But when there's a night where everyone's in the booth and like you drop this one unexpected thing and everyone's like just pushing you around and just slapping you, that's the best thing. Like, that's still the best feeling.
I mean, that was one of the beauty of having you and Andy back to back tonight, because I saw you stay there after your set, and then there were some moments where you were hyped. It was obvious you were hyped, and you rolled up there and you were like patting him on the leg and hitting him on the back.
Yeah, for sure. Whenever Andy always obviously comes with that kind of shit. Like, he drops unexpected things, double drops, triple drops, but also just switching it up in a direction that you just weren't expecting, but it's still super like heavy or deep or I don't know. Yeah, just
So when you leave a spot like this, where are you going next?
I'm going to a festival on the East Coast now. It's like they moved the location because of I don't know weather or something. Yeah. So I don't know where it is, but it's like close to DC area.
But I imagine you do a couple festivals. You know, you see Andy, you see other people dropping some tunes. You get hype. You go back home, and then what?
Yeah, and then I got my kids. Yeah, no, that's great. No, it's a great combination actually, but I don't do long tours anymore. Yeah. So I still enjoy playing out a lot. Yeah, especially because I don't do it like as hardcore as I used to. Now it's more fun because it's more special. I think, yeah.
And then you're in a unique position because you're international, right? And so you see the stateside drum and bass scene, especially as something unique. What are you noticing about it over the years, and then especially like tonight and in the past year?
Oh, it's definitely become bigger, and for sure it's become bigger in California. Also, some other places. There's like Denver is really like hot for drum and bass, and some East Coast places, and Toronto. It's not US, but it's like sort of really close. I mean, when the first few shows that I played here, it was like in bars and people were breakdancing, and it was really different. So no way there were shows like this, like huge fucking thousands of people with big production. No, so obviously it's come a long way.
Now you guys are known for pushing left field also, you know what I mean? Like, so when you come to a festival like this, is that the place to educate him, or is it the place to just drop the dance floor shit?
Not all of us agree on that part. No, I mean, Thijs is more of the education side of the story, and I just rather just drop the heavier shit. But I mean, I guess both can be right, I suppose. There's never a right way to DJ anyway. So what are you gonna say?
What do you think? What do your kids think you do, or how do you describe what you do to your kids?
Well, the youngest is still a baby, so she doesn't know. But the oldest, she knows that I make music, and I've actually written a tune with her. She's got publishing on it. It's really funny. But no, she knows. Like whenever we're in the car and there's any track on the radio, she's like, Daddy, who made this tune? Did you make it, or who else made it? As if like it's really common, like that all the tracks on the radio are just like everyone's making tracks that are on the radio. She doesn't realize that it's a pretty weird job.
How old is she?
She's 3.5.
So are you looking forward to like kind of educating her on like the old school stuff you grew up on too?
At some point, yeah. She's like right now her favorite tune is "Slide" by Calvin Harris. So nice. That's not too bad.
My son's into like Aerosmith of all things, you know.
Yeah, they're probably.
He's 12.
Yeah.
All right, any final shouts before you go? You know, this is a Bass Rush, Insomniac kind of party. You're practically family. You know, you're here half the time. You ever going to move to Southern California? And then, of course, any shouts to your Bass Rush people?
Oh, man, yeah, moving here, that's, it's not very likely because, Holland's, it's pretty cool, man. It's like, it's really safe. Not safe as in criminal safe, but it's like just nice. Nice living there. The weather is not as great as it is here. It's not by far as great as it is here, so that would be a huge plus. But there's a lot of cool shit about Holland. And yeah, family. I mean, yeah, we've been like Forrest and Pasquale and I'm not sure if you were involved at the time, but we've been coming here since before the EDC stuff. So yeah, we played the Wednesday night.
The function.
We've always been around, and really appreciate that we're still invited.
Yeah, I think the beauty of it is you're part of the LA drum and bass story. You know what I mean? Especially Southern California.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what to say. Thanks, or it's really nice realizing that it's like that.
Wide Awake Stories from Insomniac.
I love Noisia. Have you heard their radio show, Noisia Radio?
I wonder who produces that.
It's amazing. It's amazing. You can check that out on Insomniac Radio.
We're gonna bid farewell to Caroline. She has to resume her editing duties.
I feel like the drum and bass kids are like, no, don't leave us. We need you.
There's a trailer waiting to be made.
I don't want to leave you, but thanks for having me on. Nice talking to you guys.
Check her out.
Keep Bass Rush alive forever.
Hit us up with the socials.
Yeah, hit me up on the socials.
Yeah, give us the socials.
Hit me up on the socials. It's at Soothslayer. It's Sooth_Slayer for the Instagram, and on the Facebook, it's just at DJ Soothslayer. So hit me up.
I'm sure we know a lot of drum and bass heads out there, or dubstep fans, or trap fans. Let us know what you think about this topic. Hit us up, #WideAwakeStories. You can find us on Insomniac Radio. We are also broadcasting on Spotify and on iTunes or iTunes if you are British.
Use the #WideAwakeStories if you agree or disagree. Are you a back in the day type kind of person, or are you a new school?
Yes.
Who just wants to throw away all our old opinions?
I can't stand these kids
Please
today.
don't attack Bass Rush on social media anymore for not booking enough drum and bass. We hear you.
That's
We're
just
trying our
Rich under
best.
different
It is
handles.
rich. We're just like, where's the
I've
drum and
created
bass?
6 fake accounts, all under the names of old
We hear
drum and
you.
bass
We
tunes.
see them. We're doing our best. We're gonna do it.
Sam Yu, our raving correspondent, is actually throwing together a nice selection of drum and bass inspired fire for you on this month's edition of A New You. So
New
check
you,
him out.
baby.
This is Wide Awake Stories from Insomniac.
You've just heard from 2 luminaries within the drum and bass world, and it would be an insult on our part if we didn't follow up by paying our respect to the game that they call their own. That's right, it's your turn, D&B heads. So, for the next few minutes, I'll be taking you through a few of the choice cuts that I think will be dominating the dance floor in November. First up is someone who has just as much street cred as our guest on the show this episode, a man who basically needs no introduction. Taxman is one of the OGs on the lauded Playas Recordings crew, and this week he's reinforcing that legacy with the 4-track EP on the label called Echo Vibes. Track number 2 is my favorite from the bunch. It goes by the name of Magnetic. It's a deep, rumbling, cinematic number that's covered in that signature Taxman roll. Check it.
Wide Awake Stories.
Break is basically an anomaly in the dance music space. He's someone who has climbed to the upper echelons of the scene with virtually no social media presence whatsoever. I guess that leaves more time for him to hide away in the studio, and it seems to be paying off. He's on the verge of dropping his 5th studio album, Another Way. Throughout the 17-track journey, the UK stalwart explores many of the aspects of drum and bass that he loves, and he gives a nod to the old school vibes on Jungle Desire, which sees him linking up with the vocalist Kaio on a raw, raga-tinged instant classic. Keep an eye out for the full LP next week.
Awake Stories.
I've always had a soft spot for liquid, and one of the shining lights within that subgenre is elevating the sound even further by having it cohabitate with the deeper and more refined elements, including jazz, soul, and ambient jungle. Mike Kiss just turned in his debut LP, Crate 67, on Hospital Recordings at the beginning of the month, and it's littered with a type of liquid that will make your toes tingle. Human is the track where I think he excels the most at crafting the perfect balance between ethereal textures and the timeless amen break, making for a melodic weapon that ticks all the right boxes. CIA Records is a label that has 2 decades of history behind its name, and with Total Science at the helm, you best believe the duo takes its A&R duties seriously. They've always had a keen sense for what's coming next, and their latest issue sees them placing their stamp on a hard-edged Bristol talent who operates under the guise of Gamma. The up-and-comer is placing a double-sided single with them later this month, and on the flip, you can find Redland Crew, that's ripe with rave stabs and brain-rattling sub-frequencies.
Stories.
So I'm going to close out this segment with a peak time bomb. I know this because it's actually called Bomb, and it's pretty brave naming your track that, but with drum sound and bassline Smith and Tantrum Desire on tap, you wouldn't really expect anything less than the explosive power that each of them brings to the table. Tantrum Desire has been a steady fixture on the Others Technique recordings, imprint for years on end, and it's rare to see them on the collab tip. But when they are, you can rest assured it's going to be straight business. The Bomb is a rewind-worthy beast with acid drip synth work and stuttering drums and enough energy to level any dance floor it touches.
Guys, episode 21 is coming around.
It's our legal episode. It's going to be great. It's going to be sponsored by Perfectamundo Tequila.
It's also like my birthday.
Those episodes are
next episode, we are going to be talking about live electronic music.
Oh, I'd be interested to talk about that.
I have a lot of opinions
Odessa,
on that one.
Rufus de Sol. It's very, very hot right now. It reminds me a lot from back in the day when electronica used to be a big thing, and you had a lot of these bands who were going out playing live, and live electronic music was kind of a new thing. That's kind of come back now a lot with a lot of bands who are on stage with drummers. Elenium kind of does a little bit of that as well.
There's also some knockoffs. You know, DJs that want to say they're being live, but they're not actually live.
Let's get into the full debate next episode. I've got some controversial views for sure on that subject.
We all do.
And we'll try not to say back in the day 6,000 times.
Actually, for every time someone says back in the day on episode 21, we'll take a shot of Perfecta
that's a
Mundo.
great idea. And that way, I'll eventually get to a point where I just can't talk anymore.
And then we can leave work early.
There you go.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in. See you guys next month.
Bye.
Tune in next month for a new episode of Wide Awake Stories.